of the 2018 FF1M Championship, and we head to the daddy of all circuits, the Monte Carlo Street Circuit, located in the tiny Principality of Monaco. And such a daddy of a meeting needs a daddy as a co-commentator. I've got Guy Kramer from Gajera Autosport alongside me.
Hello everyone. Hello James, thanks for having me, and I think I saw your yacht in the marina there.
Yeah, the ESS, just bobbing away with Jessie B on board. I borrowed it from Willow's.
Known as the SOS.
So yes, the Monaco Grand Prix, but we'll quickly recap the previous race. That's the Spanish Grand Prix at Aragon. Third win for Alessandro Farina, and it's going very swimmingly for you at the moment.
For now, and hopefully not like the SOS swimmingly down to the bottom of the harbor in an explosion. But yeah, it's a very surprising beginning to the season, and nice to see a Flower Boy doing so well.
Absolutely, and that was part of a 1-2 finish last time out, with James Clark finally getting his first career podium finish. Väinö Kymmänen was third, and the tight confines of the street circuit of Monaco can produce some interesting qualifying results. Track position is key, and none more so than in Friday qualifying A, topped by Mattia Alfonsi, 1 minute 11.2, less than a tenth ahead of Farina, so you're nice and safe into the race, unlike Galaxy, who have once again failed to qualify for the fourth time this season.
It's a bit sad not to see Kubica make the grid.
And Sainz as well, and qualifying B, topped by the two CBA racings of Thomas Gonzalez and Mason Taylor. Kevin Magnussen third. He actually topped the Friday practice sessions overall, but Gonzalez, he found 3 seconds between Friday practice and qualifying, so fair to say that CBA may have piled on a bit of a qualifying setup.
Just a little bit.
Just a bit, and also failing to qualify Monolith Racing System, so that's the third time that they've failed to qualify. And past 2 seasons we've had a Judd engined car on pole position. Make that 3, because it is Thomas Gonzalez taking his third career pole position, first since Silverstone 2016, back when he was driving for Tornado. Alonso second on the grid, Magnussen third, and Väinö Kymmänen fourth in the Tornado. Then it is Charles Leclerc fifth, ahead of Nolan Bryant, and the other Shake and Bake in 6th place. Shake and Bake's qualifying well this season. And the first of the Gajeras, Alessandro Farina, ahead of Mason Taylor. And completing the top 10, the other FJR of Caterina Caracciola and her nemesis, Mattia Alfonsi. Those two don't like each other, so that could be fireworks into Sandivort. Kimi Raikkonen 11th in the other AJ, ahead of James Clark 12th. That's the other Gajera. And then Max Verstappen in 13th, ahead of Sebastian Vettel. Poor showing so far from Andrew Racing, and there is an explanation for that, and it is tyres. Daniel Ricciardo 15th, ahead of Valtteri Bottas in 16th, the first of the GRMs. Mitchell's not performing at all well on this circuit, it seems, as Lewis Hamilton is 17th, ahead of Roman Grosjean 18th. George Russell in the first of the Tillsleys, 19th, ahead of Sergio Perez 20th, and then the back row, which will be filled out by, once it loads up, Chuck Bucknam in the other Mitchell and Antonio Giovinazzi in the other Tilsley.
Any surprises for you, James?
Gonzalez, surprising, but he's been pretty quick all weekend, so looking good for him in the race, although warm-up, that was topped by Alessandro Farina, and he was some 7/10ths quicker than anyone else, so if he chooses a 2-stop strategy, which I imagine is the more favourable one at Monaco, then he's looking quite good for the race. If he's 3-stopping, he may do well to win, but we'll see what happens. But any other surprises? I think the Andrews performing poorly is a bit of a surprise.
It's nice to see the AJ at the top qualifying as a 10th.
10th and 11th, although they were comfortably the slowest in warm-up, so their qualifying, they could well have gone for a qualifying setup. So, 5 lights on, the obligatory pause before the 5 lights go out. Who gets away best? Gonzalez gets a good start. Alonso, poor start, but he's very late on the brakes into Sandivort. Look at that! Fernando Alonso absolutely stuns Gonzalez into the lead of the race. mean, where on earth did that come from?
Let's see if there's any more tripling on the back.
So that was Magnussen defending third from Väinö Kymmenen, and further back they look pretty much as you were. Bad start for Katarina Caracciola, falling behind Alfonsi and Clark. Clark making up a couple of positions at the start.
There's a little bit of a lock-up, but just everyone avoided everyone. It's not going to last, though.
It might have been Caracciola locking up, but we'll get confirmation of that a bit later on. So I'm just looking at the respective fuel loads, and it looks like Alonso may be 2 stopping. I think Gonzalez is 3 stopping. Oh, Bottas! Oh! Contact between Bottas and Tilsley at the seafront chicane, but they get away with it. As we complete the first lap of the race, it is Fernando Alonso leading from Thomas Gonzalez, and that fuel load could suggest a 2-stop strategy or a late 3-stop for Fernando Alonso. Strategy is going to be crucial around this twisty circuit.
And looking down there, there's not real much movement going on yet. Of course, it's Monaco, so...
Yeah, overtaking here is like finding a needle in a haystack, but is Kymmenen going to try one on Magnussen, who looks to be holding up the field? Magnussen does have more fuel compared to Kymmenen, so that could be a follow-up reason as to why Magnussen is a bit slow at this stage, but further back, still 22 cars, and 7 drivers on the hard tyres. It could be that the teams may have not updated their spreadsheets, but interestingly, I've got Caracciola on the hards because I had a plan coming into this which has not worked. So,
was her plan to finish last?
The plan was to try and annex the front row, and then compromise Caracciola setup to try and hold up the field while Magnussen escapes. But the fact that Caracciola qualified fairly poorly means that she can't do that.
That's what I'm looking at is how Alfonso is going to progress with the soft tires, because it was quite impressive to qualify with the medium. But then again, much like it's about the hards, who knows when the last time anybody updated the qualifying or race setup.
Absolutely, and
I presume there are quite a bit of default numbers there.
Absolutely. Well, we're looking at Alfonsi versus Clark for 9th and 10th place through the swimming pool section, through the right and through the left. And remember, AJs are running Avon tyres exclusively, so they're not getting the development compared to... Well, we don't actually know. I mean, AJ could just be developing Avons exclusively for a later point, but Clark all over the back of Alfonsi going into Saint-Devote.
And a little biased, but I'm definitely not looking forward to a very long highlight here because it could be very bad for the team.
Could be. Clark does have a fair bit of fuel on board, so he's got some flexibility with his strategy, but Alfonsi is definitely holding the pack up, and it stretches pretty much all the way down to... Well, it could be Russell, could be... Well, it actually stretches all the way down to Perez in 20 seconds, so... If something happens to one of the top 8, then this could be a vicious battle for the final point.
Caracciola looks to have about 2 or 3 more laps of fuel.
She's definitely 2 stopping, so that's not looking too bad for her at this stage. As through the seafront chicane goes pretty much everybody, all the way back down to Sergio Perez, who's in last place. Meanwhile, up at the front... 1.7 seconds is the gap between Alonso and Gonzalez. It was at the start of lap 4, now on the start of lap 5, 1.9 seconds. So Gonzalez is keeping Alonso pretty honest at this stage, and impressive actually, I have to say.
Gonzalez also with a healthy gap to the pack behind us. Magnussen and Kymmenen are quite close, and Leclerc just a bit behind.
Yeah, Magnussen's definitely holding Kymmenen up, but... although not to the extent that Alphonse is holding everybody else up, because Leclerc is some 1.2 seconds off of his Finnish teammate. As we switch focus to Nolan Bryant, the Californian, getting very close to the exit wall at Portier, and he's got Farina and Taylor right behind him. Switching back to James Clark through the tunnel. He's got a good slipstream on Alfonsi, diving down the inside on the brakes, and fantastic manoeuvre from James Clark. Now he's going to set off after Mason Taylor's 8th place.
Let's see if he builds a gap already or not, because Alfonsi... Wow, yeah, he did. He's got the soft tires, but like you said, independent development means that AJ might not be as advanced as the other folks in the field.
Yeah, and remember AJ were the slowest cars in warm-up, 21st and 22nd. I think they were 4/10 off of the next slowest, which was Antonio Giovinazzi. So AJ definitely holding things up a bit, particularly Alfonsi. Now, Magnussen has got both Tornadoes all over his gearbox, and I think Magnussen's starting to develop a slightly longer train, because I think Bryant, Farina and Taylor aren't that far behind either.
I had the truly trained Magnussen Metro and the Alfonsi Subway.
Absolutely, and it will soon be James Clark joining up to this slot as well, so if he's absolutely flying. He'd set a fastest lap of a mid-1 minute 13, and the rest of the field are in the mid-1 minute 14s.
And I think I can feel Tobias's tension building up as Leclerc comes close to the pack with his, let's say, preference for some go-karts bumping level.
Yeah, Leclerc does like to get his elbows out. He shoved Verstappen out of the way at Aragon, and then shoved thrice as many competitors out of the way at Melbourne. So Leclerc's not afraid to a bit of a shoulder barge.
I think he just misses Maldonado.
Haven't seen much of Maldonado in the FF1M world. He's made an appearance in the GT3 Super Cup, which died out in 2015, I think. But it'd be nice to see the Maldonado name back at some point.
Speak for yourself, James. Although maybe when Peterson returns, we might see Maldonado Jr. come back.
Yep, and through the Tabac goes Magnussen, the 2 Tornadoes, and Leclerc dropping back a bit from Kinnunen, so I think either Leclerc is more heavily fueled, or he's just biding his time a bit.
I'd say quite impressive too that I can't really see the timer. I was gonna say that no drivers retiring, but yeah, that was a commentator's thought curse.
Absolutely, George Russell, the first retirement of the race, a big blown engine, the Hart engine in the back of the Tilsley, and I'm going to say the line, a heart attack. And I think there's another yellow flag at the chicane, just after the chicane, so has somebody else had a mechanical woe? Might get that confirmed on the screen in a bit. It's Caracciola, so
Oh no.
she was in for a long afternoon anyway, so she's allowed to leave early.
I'm guessing there might be a little bit of ERS involved in this.
I'm not running that much, only 20% ERS. Yeah, just the 20, but obviously it was a gearbox problem that put Caracciola out, so if it's nothing to do with the engine, then I need to improve the car reliability. Gonzalez coming into the pits at the end of this lap, end of lap 17, so pretty early. Probably should rejoin in between Clark and Alfonsi.
And Alonso just building that gap.
Not as big as a gap as I was expecting, to be honest. Shake and bakes don't tend to perform as quickly in the race compared to qualifying, and out the pits in 5.5 goes Gonzalez.
Clark perhaps going by Farina.
And rejoining in 9th place, that's behind James Clark, so slotted in between Clark and Alfonsi. And what can he do with new tyres?
That was a really tight pack. Crash faster.
And Vino Kiminen's coming into the pits at the end of this lap. I don't think his strategy is going to work out as well as Gonzalez, I reckon. And I think the little one's just woken up.
I think he'd disagree with the commentary.
You may well do. I think he's moaning that Magnussen's not leading the race. But into the pits comes Väinö Kymmänen. Now, where's he going to rejoin? If Alfonsi has been incredibly slow, then Kymmänen may rejoin ahead of the Italian.
It's a tight pack of many cars within its second window.
Mason Taylor also making a pit stop, so CBAs were very lightly fuelled at the opening stint of the race. Out the pits, that's still showing P8, still ahead of Alfonsi, so that's worked out pretty well for Kymmänen.
Very good, very lucky. Yeah, I wonder how Alfonsi's going to be doing those tires.
Taylor rejoining behind Alfonsi, so that's not worked out as well for the Kiwi. Now Kymmenen's going to try and set some fast laps in order to jump Magnussen, and Alfonsi coming in pretty quickly, so that's going to release Mason Taylor for a bit. And ignore the Firestone on the sidewalls, they are Avons that AJ's running.
These are Firestone's AJ bought on the Sunday market down the street from the Red Lion in Aldershot.
Bottom at the second-hand garage as yellow flags at swimming pool. It's the Jesse B powered Willows of Roman Grosjean who's pulled off. And that's a mechanical problem. You can see the red light. I didn't quite see what... It's a transmission problem.
I think the race director made a point of bringing us back on the cockpit, on the onboard camera, to see the beautiful sponsor logo.
So Farina chasing Nolan Bryant now for 4th place at the moment. But Nolan Bryant's due into the pits soon. Not this lap, but the lap after. But Farina is due in the pits at the end of this lap.
Putting the way for Clark to take the spot.
So is that a 3-stop or a 2-stop for Farina? Because it's lap 23, it's sort of in between the two. I'll be interested to see how much fuel is put on board this Mugen-powered Gajera.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say. If I hope it's for 2 or 3. I just hope that they're able to finish the race.
Yeah, your reliability's been pretty good, aside from 1 or 2 minor mechanical issues that have resulted in an unscheduled pit stop. What I will say, as Alonso comes into the pits, and you probably won't want to hear this, is that the last 2 races I've had co-commentators, they've suffered double retirements, so hopefully you're going to break that curse.
I think Rio had the same sentiment. I think he said Gojira. Wise words from a young man.
And he's watching the action now, as seeing how good this pit stop is. It's a very good pit stop for Farina as he exits the pits.
So it's definitely looking like a 3-stopper here.
Yep, just 24 laps altogether on board the Italian's car. Rejoining in 8th, that's behind Väinö Kymmänen, so that's as before. Red flag now, Kevin Magnussen is winning the race. But he's due into the pits at the end of this lap, so this could also be a 3-stop strategy for the Danish driver.
We'll see if Jackie X, if he's anywhere near the Principality for this event.
I'm going to do a quick rain dance. And by the way, Alonso rejoined ahead of Thomas Gonzalez, so Alonso should still be in the net lead once everyone else makes pit stops. Leclerc in the pits as Nolan Bryant. There's Alonso back into the lead of the race. How good are these pit stops? Magnussen ahead of Leclerc, and is Bryant ahead of Leclerc? It's a bit difficult to see. Yes, he is. Nolan Bryant has jumped Charles Leclerc in the pit stops.
That's impressive.
Shake and Bake having the advantage of the earlier pit garage.
See, Farina has more fuel than Magnussen. Hopefully he won't put it on the wall before he passes.
And Magnussen just rejoined ahead of Farina, so that was crucial for track position. Farina has jumped Leclerc and Bryant, but Kymmänen has jumped Magnussen.
So the pit stop then, so this might be paving the way for the 2 versus 3 stoppers.
Yes, it could well be that the top lot are all 3 stopping. So far, Vettel, Bottas and Perez have not yet stopped. Yeah, so I think they're sticking to a two-stop strategy, which they're not in the points, so it's not paying off so far, so they're hoping for a lot of retirements in front.
And with how much time we have left in the highlights, then there's a good chance they will maybe even finish in the podium.
Could do, as this is the replay of how Leclerc was jumped in the pit stops by Nolan Bryant. So pulling into the box ahead of Magnussen and Bryant, and slightly slow left front. Had to wait.
Track position.
Yeah, he just had to. I did not notice that. James Clark has also jumped Charles Leclerc.
I have to say, I'm afraid for his health now.
I'm afraid for his elbows.
See if Farina is able to make the move after the casino.
Yep. And Farina looked like he had a very good run out of Sandy Rock, but Monaco being Monaco, couldn't make the most of it behind Magnussen.
I think I just saw Joe Mitchell with a Bagger's hat on the corner there.
Through the Lowe's hairpin, it's 4th place Magnussen being hounded by 5th place Alessandro Farina. And we're approaching 1/3 distance now. It is Fernando Alonso leading by 8.3 seconds over Thomas Gonzalez, and Alonso pulling away steadily now.
And crucially, Kymmenen ahead of Magnussen with a almost 5-second gap.
I think the little one just heard the news that Magnussen is out of the podium spot, so he's not happy anymore. So rounding Raskas, and yeah, just a little bit of Monaco history. So it's Fernando Alonso who holds the record for the most wins out of any driver with 3, and Monaco does tend to produce quite some unusual winners. You had JJ Leto winning a race in 93 and Gianni Morbidelli winning in 1994.
Mm-hmm. Was Leto driving for you in 93?
He was, yeah. Leto and Carl Wendlinger was his teammate. And both drivers won races that season. I enjoyed that season. I suspect you probably didn't, because Ayrton Senna crashed out at Portier.
Yes, but it was made up for the following season, fortunately. But yeah, it was frustrating but tight. Very competitive season.
Absolutely, with Alessandro Zanardi winning for CBA Racing. And how's CBA doing? 2nd and 9th, so Taylor out of the points and may not finish in the points unless one of the top 8 has an issue. The other unusual winner of this race came in 2012, which was an absolute crash fest, which ended up being Bruno Senna's final win of his career.
See, both cruisers are approaching. Maybe we'll see some action before I get to the hairpin.
Through the casino goes Magnussen and Farina once again, and do I detect Nolan Bryant and James Clark closing up on these two as well? Looking at the lap charts, it does seem that way. Magnussen is the slowest out of these 5. And curiously, the fastest on the circuit is Valtteri Bottas in 12th, but that could, because he crossed the pit lane entry and the timing line registers a lap time earlier.
So some defensive line there by Magnussen.
He's going to have to if he's going to do something about his race, as we now switch to the battle for 14th place. Mattia Alfonsi, who's dropped behind Kimi Räikkönen, struggling with his setup and tyres. He's got Daniel Ricciardo all over his 6. And we're going to have a battle for seconds now, because Kymmenen is just 0.4 of a second behind Thomas Gonzalez as Sergio Perez makes his first pit stop.
So far, just nice to see a third through the race, the drivers behaving with each other. I wonder how that may shift as more stress goes into cars, as well as the race versus qualifying spectrum, with some drivers perhaps performing a little slower, but hoping that there's enough to just hold up traffic.
Yep, and Sergio Perez rejoined in 13th place, so that's behind Kimi Räikkönen. That's not going to do his race a lot of good if the AJs are struggling with their tyres. That was a bit of a smoky entry for Alfonsi, going through the swimming pool, and he's lucky to get away with that one.
Very close to maybe a safety car.
Maybe so. Now Magnussen is pitting at the end of this lap. That's a very early second pit stop that he's making, so maybe he just wants some new tyres and hopefully some clear air. I wonder where he's hoping to rejoin.
Farina desperate for that pit stop to happen so he can have maybe 1 or 2 clean laps.
Yep. As through the seafront chicane, Magnussen was just holding the middle ground there. Certainly playing a more defensive race than he was hoping.
And Farina's gap to Kimmon and Gonzalez has gone up by 2 or 3 more seconds.
Yep, and Gonzalez is still holding on to that second place from Kimmonen as Magnussen comes into the pits. Yeah, the timing line for the pit entry is a lot earlier, and Nolan Bryant in the pits as well. Now, will Shake and Bake's garage advantage pay off? Oh yes, it does. Nolan Bryant has jumped Kevin Magnussen in the pits, 4.7 seconds. Brilliant pit stop.
That was impressively fast for how much fuel they put on.
Yeah, brilliant pit stop from the Shake and Bake crew. And that could transform Bryant's race. If he's now ahead of Kevin Magnussen, he can pull away and maybe do something about the drivers in front, as Fernando Alonso is now in some traffic.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. This puts Bryant around 5th when it's all said and done. 4th.
Could be 4th place if Farina's pit stop doesn't go to plan, but more likely 5th, as look at this traffic jam that Alonso's faced with. He's got a Tilsley, that's Giovinazzi. In fact, Alonso's going to pit at the end of this lap, so he's not going to bother with the lapping manoeuvres.
Farina now pedal to the metal, trying to make up for lost time with the fastest lap.
1 minute 13.0 for Farina as he now sets off after Gonzalez and Kimmonen as Clark comes into the pits. And just about some good outlaps for Nolan Bryant puts him ahead of James Clark, and Clark jumping Kevin Magnussen in the process as well.
I believe Bryant is going to end up holding up Clark, which is not going to be good for Clark's race, unless Clark is able to make a pass at the harbour.
Good luck with that, as into the pits comes Alonso with Antonio Giovinazzi in front.
Even with my FF1M history, I don't want to rely on luck because I don't think she exists.
6.2 seconds, so not as quick compared to Nolan Bryant, but comfortably ahead of the lapped Tilsley as Väinö Kimmonen also comes into the pits. Was Gonzalez into the pits as well? No, he wasn't. And that's not going to help Gonzalez being held up by Alonso. I think Kimmonen is going to jump Gonzalez for second unless Kimmonen emerges a heap of traffic on his outlap. There's yellows at to back. So who has gone off at to back? Or was that a quick spin? Oh, it's going to see Nolan Bryant clouting the barrier at the first swimming pool, and he's crashed!
It always goes bad when you go. The first contact puts you off the line, but fortunately it didn't seem to collect anyone else, especially the Gojira cars.
Yeah, not as lucky compared to Alfonsi was Nolan Bryant, so that's scuppered his race, and that's moved James Clark up a net position. And Farina's going to pit at the end of this lap. And he's stuck behind Gonzalez, so I think now is a good time to do so. It's going to be interesting to see where he rejoins, because if he's been held up by Gonzalez sufficiently, he may lose out to James Clark. The gap is only 22 seconds.
It's crucial that he comes out ahead of Clark, but we'll see how the pit stop gods go, how many laps to go in.
Into the pits. target to get out ahead of James Clark, and Clark is pretty quick at the moment. He's the fastest out there on the circuit.
It's a very slow stop.
A very slow stop because I think Mason Taylor's seeing to that.
Yes, 6.7 seconds was 2 seconds slower than Bryant, plus this other 2-second wait, so that's definitely going to put him behind potentially even Magnussen.
And who was that darting past? That was James Clark. So that's scuppered Farina's race a little bit, but crucially ahead of Kevin Magnussen. So up the hill and into the pits comes Charles Leclerc.
Still in one piece.
On go a new set of medium Firestones, and not as quick as Nolan Bryant. It was a 6.4 second pit stop.
With a bit of an abbreviated fuel load, so it's definitely going to be an interesting final stint.
And that's behind the two Gajeras, so Farina and Clark are getting the jump on Leclerc, ahead of Kevin Magnussen though, and up into 8th place has come the two stopping Sebastian Vettel. So Mason Taylor's race of a 3-stop strategy being compromised a bit. Now, this is going to be an interesting pit stop because Thomas Gonzalez has left it a little bit later compared to his rivals, and he's going to drop a fair few positions.
Be interesting to see where he comes compared to the Goodyears, if he's able to come ahead of any of the Goodyears or even ahead of the Tornado.
Yeah, he may be jumped by Charles Leclerc actually. Maybe Kevin Magnussen, depending on how quick this pit stop is. Let's see how this stop goes. 5.6, pretty good.
That looked like a Tornado, perhaps?
Well, an FJR just went past the swimming pool, so I think he's got the measure of Magnussen. That's one Gajera past of James Clark, but not the other. So Thomas Gonzalez has gone from 2nd down to 4th.
Farina's day continues to not get better.
And if CBA have concentrated more on qualifying than the race, then Farina is going to be stuck behind another slow car. So we're now past half distance, and well, the gap has come down a fair bit, as that's the other AJ, Kimi Raikkonen, pulling off with a mechanical issue at the swimming pool section.
There's a very sudden transmission. There's a very sudden lockup of the tires.
Yeah, gearbox seizure, and well, Väinö Kimonen is flying. He's now less than 5 seconds behind Fernando Alonso, and James Clark is catching up to the pair of them. So this race, as we've just hit 2/3 distance, starting to come alive a little bit.
I think my small one has just woken up as well.
Ah. Cheering on for Clark and Farina. Through the chicane, through the second sector point, it's now 4.4 seconds. This is Kimonen we are looking at through the swimming pool section. He's due a pit stop soon. That's going to be a very early final pit stop for Väinö Kimonen, so is this going to be an undercut attempt? Then again, Fernando Alonso's not got that much fuel on board either. And the top three pulling away pretty quickly from Thomas Gonzalez now, so this looks to be the top three now, unless reliability suddenly kicks in.
Or unless Farina is able to get past Gonzalez to start closing the gap to the front pack.
Yeah, but we have seen in the past couple of races that the CBA car is pretty quick in a straight line. They've tended to run some fairly aggressive settings. So
to put it nicely,
Gonzalez is going to be difficult to overtake, but he's now deep in traffic. That's putting a lap on Antonio Giovinazzi.
Who's holding up a Gojira. Okay, Farina is able to get through unscathed.
But Charles Leclerc's going to have to wait for a little bit longer. Now, Kevin Magnussen has got Sebastian Vettel approaching him. Well, there's Leclerc, getting held up quite a lot. And Mason Taylor's not that far behind either, so now Vettel's going to make his second and final pit stop. As the gap between Alonso and Kimonen continues to go down, it's now 3.5 seconds.
It's a significant decrease.
As through the swimming pool goes the Andrew, racing on the hard Goodyear tyres, which don't look too bad in race trim. As turning right for his second pit stop goes Sebastian Vettel. 4 retirements in the first 4 races. He's been deeply unlucky this season so far.
Be interesting to see how we go in this silly season, how some drivers might shift around or not.
Excellent pit stop for Vettel at just 4.6 seconds.
And that'll take him through the end of the race.
Definitely, as he's got some lovely clear track as well, so he could put in some outlaps in order to jump Kevin Magnussen for 7th place.
Both Alonso and Kim are pitting at the same time. Let's see how that plays out.
And that's going to play into Fernando Alonso's hands because he's got the earlier pit box. And yeah, he should stay ahead of Kiminen after this 3rd round of pit stops, which is beginning at the end of this lap. That is Max Verstappen that Alonso is looking to lap.
And Farina looks to have dropped off Gonzalez a little bit, perhaps trying to keep his squad not lose his mind.
Could be traffic as well. Could be that Gonzalez is trying to bolt whilst Farina is stuck in a little bit more traffic. Now we're going to see Fernando Alonso keep hard right as he enters the pits for the 3rd time for his final pit stop. A few more pitters, Daniel Ricciardo and Chuck Buckingham. Chuck Buckingham looking for points, and it doesn't look likely that he'll get some in this race.
Good stop from Alonso.
Again, the shake and bake mechanics performing exemplary today.
And we were told that as a reward they might even be receiving French fries for lunch.
A favourite of Alonso's, as Kiminen rejoins still in 2nd. I was sort of expecting James Clark to be ahead of those two, but... And we're looking at Leclerc. This is about to try and put a lap on the AJ of Matteo Alfonsi, and
Magnussen tried to make the most of it. He got caught behind the AJ car.
Yep. And it's Charles Leclerc coming into the pits at the end of this lap. He'd lost over a second compared to Farina with that lapping fracas, shall we call it, or hesitation. And through the Rascasse. And into the pits comes Charles Leclerc.
As Rio celebrates the changing. With Magnussen gaining a position.
Only temporarily, unfortunately. 6.3 second pit stop for Charles Leclerc.
Not the worst, but not the greatest. But at least it has clear traffic.
Clear track, temporarily 9th place. Actually, that's not worked out at all well for Leclerc because Sebastian Vettel has seemingly come from nowhere on his 2-stop strategy to jump the Tornado. Well, excuse me, Sebastian Vettel, where's this come from? And if he carries on like this, Farina's yet to make a pit stop. I think Vettel could be on course for some serious points if it goes particularly badly. As into the pits comes Thomas Gonzalez.
Yeah, there is an argument for him to... Yeah, Vettel potentially... Let's see if he might even get to 6th place, maybe 5th.
Well, let's see how Thomas Gonzalez's pit stop goes. That's 5.4 seconds. There goes Vettel, I think, on the right-hand side. 7th for the moment. Turning left and right out of the pits. Ahead of Sebastian Vettel, so that's worked out fine for Gonzalez. So I think maybe Farina's safe.
Yeah, now Farina was able to close in on Clark.
The gap, well, it's now just 0.8 of a second.
But he's pitting now, so fortunately they will not fight each other in track, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see now he definitely needs to come out of ahead of. It's not going to happen, but yeah, he needs to get ahead of Gonzalez. That was a terrible pit stop again.
6.7 seconds, but at least not blocked by Mason Taylor this time.
So I'm definitely cutting the French fries for the mechanics, though.
Taylor coming into the pits at the same time, so Farina, that's fourth. That's ahead of Gonzalez, so Farina has jumped a position.
Did just enough in a couple laps.
Yep, and by the way, Magnussen has made his final pit stop and has rejoined behind Vettel and Leclerc, so Magnussen now dropping down to 8th place.
20 laps to go, see if Vettel is able to at least hold his position.
So he's got just under 4 seconds to Charles Leclerc. I'll keep an eye out on that gap, but at the moment we've now switched to incoming lead battle with the other Tornado versus Fernando Alonso. It was like this for some of last season, Alonso versus Kymmenen, but it was usually Kymmenen getting the upper hand in the races. Can he do it again for his second win of the season, or can Alonso hold on for his first win of the season and extending his Monaco record to 4 wins? We've got 20 laps to go.
And some back markers there to make Alonso sweat a little bit and give chance for Kymmenen.
And James Clark, if Alonso is holding up Väinö Kymmenen, will be closing up on the top 2, so how quickly can Clark close up? That's another question. As through the double right at the portier and into the tunnel goes Alonso, goes Kymmenen. They're approaching Max Verstappen to lap once again, and in front of Verstappen is Daniel Ricciardo, so that's next on the traffic list.
Well, it's never good to see those on board from far away.
Through the swimming pool, and very late on the brakes is Kymmenen. Pretty much took half the gap off of Fernando Alonso with that one out brake.
Very aggressive.
And in through Anthony Nogue's corner.
Wonder if he'll be close enough to try making a dive before the hairpin.
Well, the shake and bake is very quick in a straight line, so Kymmenen's going to have to rely on some divine intervention in order to win this race. And oh, Kymmenen, no! Väinö Kymmenen's got a problem. He's slowing with a mechanical issue.
Transmission and throttle, oof.
All sorts of problems according to the Tornado steering wheel. And can he make it back into the pits, or is the Tornado going to conk out?
I think the Tornado might try to take the Gojira out of the hairpin. No.
James Clark moves up into second place. And that will move Alessandro Farina up into third. Well, Kymmenen keeping on going so far.
Looks like I think he'll make it. It's close enough and it's slow enough track. Unless he has a crash, but I think he'll make it.
That's through the swimming pool. Only a few more corners before he reaches the pit lane. And where is he going to rejoin as well?
This is definitely tense moments. My guess, yeah, probably coming around his teammate.
Just made it 6th place.
Ooh.
Right round his teammate. Well forecast, but just behind.
Tobias definitely a little bit lost water weight to that sweating when he saw how close the pass was.
Yeah, he'll be a bit gutted with that one.
Oh no.
Oh no, Mason Taylor. Once again, struggling to make the checkered flag, although this time around, completely self-inflicted.
Just far enough from the pit stop to not be able to come in.
Yeah, we'll take more than 5 seconds to bolt some new suspension parts on.
And very interestingly enough, Clark now closed on Alonso.
Yep, Alonso being badly held up by Max Verstappen through this swimming pool and Rascasse. Oh, Max has an issue, actually, so that could explain some of that. That's come very late for Max Verstappen, but at least he's made it back into the pits.
My suspicion is that Alonso is probably running extremely high qualifying configuration.
Yeah, he did pick up quite a bit of time in between Saturday practice and Saturday qualifying, but it was pretty fast in the warm-up, so it may well have been a qualifying lean, shall we say, rather than full-on qualifying like what Kevin Magnussen appears to have been running. And I did see a shot, actually. Kevin Magnussen isn't completely safe at the final point because he's got Valtteri Bottas closing in on him.
Let's see how long do we stay on this fight for the top spot, because the rest of the grid there's pretty reasonable gaps in between them. That is not, we have Vettel and Gonzalez somewhat close, but no one as close as Clark and Alonso.
Yeah, it could be a battle for fourth between Gonzalez and Vettel incoming. The gap between those two nearest makes no difference, 7/10 of a second. But CBA is a very difficult car to overtake. Just 5 laps to go, and there was a brief shot of Lewis Hamilton and Daniel Ricciardo, very close together. Oh, good lord! So Mattia Alfonsi was breaking down.
More mechanical gremlins.
And that badly held up Alonso and Clark. Could it be a 3-way battle for the lead? So that was a scare for Fernando. And you can see Farina is not far behind these two now, and with Alonso and Clark being held up by the AJ, there was nearly 4 seconds that the pair of them lost behind the stationary Alfonsi.
Oh, and Kimi up on Leclerc's rear now as well.
Yep, a battle for 6 now. Kimmonen on fresher tyres compared to Charles Leclerc, but as it's Monaco, may have to settle for 7th place, Vino.
I'm sure Tobias would rather have a 6 and 7 than the cars coming together for only a 6th place.
And remember, Leclerc and Kimmonen did collide with each other at Melbourne. Only a gentle love tap, but not enough to cause an issue. But it certainly made Kimmonen think twice about his aggressive teammate, because Leclerc ended up overtaking Kimmonen on the final lap at Melbourne. And I suspect Tobias might be a bit disappointed by that result of 6th and 7th, considering Kimmonen was challenging for the win only a few laps ago.
Yeah, we have reports from the paddock that Tobias was actually set and releasing a hit single called Love Tap, which is a cover of Love Shack.
Love Tap.
He might be postponing it.
Depends how close Leclerc and Kimmonen remain. And Gonzalez remaining about 7/10 ahead of Sebastian Vettel, so Gonzalez looking good for a 4th place, I think, which a decent result for him, and he has a bit of unfinished business around Monaco because it was last season where he did take the lead, but then understeered into the barrier at Rascasse very early on.
Only 2 laps to go, and it looks like, again, a commentator's curse, the guys will be able to finish and hold their position. So, of course, a 1-2 would have been better, but can't really complain of podium finish given everything that could go wrong and all the hold-up that Farina had.
Absolutely, but Alonso has played this race very well, with that superb outbraking manoeuvre despite a sluggish getaway around the outside at Saint Devote, then just measuring himself for pretty much the whole race. Gonzalez kept him honest in the first stint, but Gonzalez was running lighter compared to Fernando, and then once Gonzalez pitted, Alonso opened the taps a little bit.
Just perfect strategy.
Well, he's got another lap and a half to make sure that perfection becomes reality, but through the chicane, which has seen quite a few drivers hitting the inside barrier in previous races, but none this time.
Yet.
Not yet. Still got a lap and a half for that to become reality.
Completely unbiased commentating.
About to start the final lap, the top three all in the same straight. Fernando Alonso, James Clark, Alessandro Farina. As through Sandivot, it is still Fernando Alonso. I wouldn't call it a comfortable gap, but it's a gap that he can control.
Similar gap from P1 to P2 as P2 to P3.
Pretty much, yep. And still Gonzalez in 4th ahead of Vettel, and still Leclerc 6th ahead of Kinnunen, and Kevin Magnussen holding on to the final point at this moment.
Impressive race from Vettel.
Very impressive, definitely a candidate for driver of the day. As is Alonso, as is Clark. Clark was 12th on the grid as well, so...
It was, yeah. I was a little surprised of how far back my guys qualified, but again, between tires and the levels of downforce and everything that goes in between, it is what it is, but yeah, I can't really complain.
All about that balance between qualifying and the race, particularly at a circuit like this. And just a few more corners to go, and it seems as if Fernando Alonso has got the balance absolutely spot on, because out of the Anthony Nogues corner for his first win of the season is the shake and bake of Fernando Alonso. Gajera's 2 and 3 with James Clark ahead of Alessandro Farina.
Thomas Gonzalez under pressure from Vettel.
Still in 4th place, and, well, not that much pressure actually, but so maybe Vettel didn't really fancy having a go at the feisty Argentine driver. But a good drive nonetheless for Gonzalez after pole position to hold on to 4th place despite what looked like a less than ideal race setup. 2 tornadoes, 6th and 7th. And we wait for the result of the final point. It goes to Kevin Magnussen, so he keeps up his 100% point scoring record this season. And 35th career victory for Fernando Alonso.
A very impressive race. Great start.
A fantastic start indeed. I'm just trying to rack off the top of my head. I don't think that's the record for wins. I think that is being held by Lewis Hamilton. I'll check with you a bit later on.
That's good to... The Gudry is rounding up the podium. Clark finishing ahead of his teammate Farina. So definitely excellent race for Clark as well.
No doubt helped by Farina being held up by a few slower cars, namely Thomas Gonzalez, but Farina's lead in the championship remains pretty healthy. And 8th in a retirement for myself. I must be honest, I'm a tad disappointed by that, because I was expecting at least 2 finishes, but yeah.
I have to say though, it's only 7 non-finishers and perhaps only 1 from crashing, so it's a really interesting season. I'm very happy with this race, and I think it's boding well for the rest of the season, and if we don't have many changes also for next season, so like the other teams can also catch up or do new development.
Absolutely. So the lead for Farina is 19 points over Fernando Alonso. James Clark in 3rd place on 29 points ahead of Väinö Kinnunen 4th. And Kevin Magnussen holding on to 5th ahead of Charles Leclerc, the top 6 all in double digits. And Vettel finally gets points. I probably should have made more of a deal out of that, but yeah, Vettel finally gets onto the scoreboard.
Into the top 10.
And as for the team's championship, the lead is 39 points over Tornado, and Shake and Bake close up to just 1 point behind Tornado, with FJR holding on to 4th, and CBA moving back ahead of AJ for 5th place.
Then I have rounded off, Andrew with 6 points, Metro 3, Chariana 3, and then Willow's the final point scoring team with 1. Anyway, thank you, James.
Yep, Tilsley, Monolith, and Galaxy yet to score. Yep, pleasure having you here, Guy, and well done on the double podium finish. And for your sake, I bet you're hoping it continues going into the next race at Road America. So from the two of us, we shall see you then.